Kamińska. I'm the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Political Science and Journalism for Projects and International Collaboration. And on behalf of the authorities, staff and the local academic community, I would like to welcome you to the Faculty of Political Science and Journalism at Adam Mickiewicz University. We are very grateful that you decided to take part in the 8th edition of our annual International Relations Conference, which is called Beyond Europe. That's the general label of this conference. This year, actually, the topic of this conference is extremely important and a global issue, which is the artificial intelligence in international politics and communication. Let me tell you that this event wouldn't be possible without the support of our partners. First of all, we would like to thank the Ministry of Higher Education and the Investor of Relations Department of the City of Poznań for their support. Also, I would like to emphasize the fact that this event is a result of extremely fruitful cooperation with the Faculty of Mathematics and Computer Science and the personal support of the Dean, Krzysztof Tyczkowski, who we would like to thank very much. Also, let me welcome special guests to our event. First of all, let me welcome Professor Bronisław Sitek, who is the head of the Scientific Excellence Council. Also, I would like to welcome Professor Filip Kaczmarek, who is the head of the Poznań Society for the Advancement of Arts and Sciences. And also, of course, I would like to welcome our distinguished keynote speakers. And here's the list of those important guests at this event. First of all, let me welcome Professor Ross Harrison, the Senior Fellow and Director of Research at Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. Professor Anna Nagibaidze from the Center for the War Studies at the University of Southern Denmark. Professor Roman Becker from the Nicolaus Copernicus University. And Professor Piotr Moncarz from the Stanford University. I would like to thank to the head of the Doctoral School of Social Sciences and the president of the Supervisor Board, Professor Radosław Fiedler, as well as Professor Magdalena Musiał-Kark, who is the head of the Center for European Research and Education, but also the president of the Polish Political Science Association. Finally, I would like to welcome all of you, our dearest colleagues and guests. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for joining this crucial event. We are very grateful that you decided to participate in this event. And let me tell you that this event is really, really international one, because we are hosting the representatives of universities from as many as 18 countries. So let me name those countries so that we can feel that almost the whole world is here. So that would be the US, Denmark, Spain, Georgia, Poland, Iraq, Netherlands, UK, Croatia, Ukraine, Pakistan, Turkey, Italy, Hungary, Germany, Portugal, Brazil, and Japan. That's very impressive. So I would like to congratulate to the organizers, not only for selecting the topic, but also inviting so many people from so many countries around the world. So now I would like to give the floor to the Dean of the Faculty of Political Science and Journalism, Professor Szymon Ossowski.
Thank you. Dear participants of the conference, this is 8th time when you have met at the Faculty of Political Science and Journalism at the Mickiewicz University in Poznań for the conference Beyond Europe. Each year the conference has more foreign participants. Thank you very much for accepting Professor Fiedler's invitation and coming to Poznań. Therefore, I wish you successful deliberation and interesting discussion. I believe that you will be satisfied with your participation in this conference. Thank you again to the organizers, special guests. Thanks to you, we can participate in this unique scientific meeting, and I'm I hope that it will be a good time in our faculty. Thank you, Professor Agnieszka, and good luck.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Computer Science, Professor Krzysztof Dyczkowski.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear participants, it's a great honor to welcome you at Adam Mickiewicz University and on the conference Artificial Intelligence in International Relations and Communications. As a co-organizer of Faculty of Mathematics, Computer Science, together with the Faculty of Political Science, Journalists is proud to host these prestigious events. Bringing together renewed scholars, experts, esteemed guests from around the world, this conference promises to stimulate valuable discussion and deepen our understanding of transformative impact of AI on global communication and international relations. I wish you engaging presentations, fruitful discussions to the conference, and I wish you pleasant stay in Poznań and on our beautiful campus. I will warmly welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Professor Bronisław Szytek, as the head of the Scientific Excellence Council, to say just a few words. Professor, we are trying to do our best to achieve this excellence here.
Thank you very much. I would like to thanks for inviting me for this conference, very important international conference. It's a very great honor for me and for my institution to be here with you. I wish you good conference and good day. Very short speech.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite Professor Magdalena Musiał-Kark to say just a few words to you. Just to remind you, she is the head of the Center for the European Research and Education and the president of the Polish Political Science Association.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends. It's a great honor to be here with you and to be a part of this important conference on a very important topic, which is artificial intelligence. And today all of us will be exploring this topic, which is not only a technological advancement for all of us, and it is something that is changing the world, but is also something like a responsibility. We as scholars, practitioners, policymakers, we should bear the task of ensuring that AI is not only something technological, but also a tool for peace, understanding and progress, rather than division or conflict. And on behalf of myself and my fellows from the boards of Polish Political Science Associations and also Center for European Research and Education, I would like to welcome you. Thank you for your participation and congratulate to the organizer, especially to Professor Radosław Filler, for this challenge of organizing this event, inviting so many distinguished guests. And
sorry, but is a big word also Professor Przemysław Osiecki.
And yes, let me finish. And I would like to also say many thanks to all the team of Professor Fiedler and also the team of the center, especially like you said, Piotr Baranowski, Elias, Przemek Osiewicz, and also Natasha Lubikarczyk, who was really assisting the team of Professor Fiedler in preparing documents and all of the formal stuff related to the conference. So without taking more time, I would like to wish you wonderful deliberations, exchange of opinions and results of your research. And I wish that this conference will be an inspiration for all of us. And so I wish you fruitful discussions and wonderful time in Poznań. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We should probably also mention the students who are assisting the organizational team. You can actually find them, and if you need any assistance, they will be more than happy to help you with this. So now that would be the right time to start the first keynote session, and I would like to welcome Professor Przemysław Osiewicz, who will be moderating this part.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor and privilege to welcome, I would say, the first set of our keynote speakers, because we do not have all of them here in this session, but it's the first one. So let me introduce here Professor Piotr Mącarz from Stanford University. Peter, the floor is yours. Also Professor Roman Becker from Nicolaus Copernicus University, who is a big friend of our conference. I think it's the sixth, actually we don't count, but I think it's the sixth or the seventh time, Roman, you are here, so we are more than happy to have you. Please.
It might be eighth.
So maybe all of them. So I will have to double check, right? Anna, word person, Anna, please. Have a seat here, yes. Yeah. So Anna Nalibejzy, who actually is from, well, represents for the moment Center for Studies, University of Southern Denmark, but the moment Professor Agnieszka mentioned all countries, states, Canada was not included, right? And actually I think I will don't reveal a secret that although Anna works in Denmark, she comes from Canada, right? So we have a Canadian here. And last but not least, my beloved Professor Ross Harrison. Ross, who works for the Middle East Institute, and so here we have our distinguished keynote speakers. We'll begin with short presentations of our keynote speakers, which will be followed with a Q&A session after that, and you will be able to ask them questions. I may also take advantage of this situation and ask the first or maybe the last question in this session. But yeah. Without further ado, we'll begin with Professor Piotr Mącarz. Peter, the floor is yours. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. So, beyond Europe, you couldn't be more beyond Europe than what I represent here. I represent Silicon Valley. And I want to tell you how Beyond Europe tries to stay connected to Europe, and particularly through Poland, through cooperation with Poland. And I wanted to focus on a topic that is including AI in it, opportunity in singularity. As you know, and I heard yesterday some very interesting discussions already before the conference, AI is viewed as the solution to all problems, as the hell that is coming, and hence singularity. I wanted to bring in few words a summary on why Silicon Valley should be part of this discussion, and the system decided to have a life of its own. I think AI is moving my slides. European countries realize what I'm talking about and started their centers in Silicon Valley to keep contact. Those centers through grassroots operations, build bridge between individual countries here in Europe, as I showed, and Silicon Valley. Why Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley because it is a door to innovative world today. I will not bore you with statistics, but if I tell you that in my neighborhood I had Steve Jobs when he was alive, Zuckerberg is still there, Elon Musk was there, blah, 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 blah. So this is what Silicon Valley is all about. In order to bring the opportunities of talking to Silicon Valley, we organize annual conference, and this 2025, our 23rd conference will be on opportunities in singularity. Here is Poland Science and Technology Symposium in June. You are all invited. Please look at the webpage of www.usptc.org. It will be at the end of the presentation. And if you find time to come, I don't think you will regret. We organize programs. We organize a program of top 500 innovators together with the Minister of Science and Higher Education. 500 young people, PhDs and postdocs, came to the 3 of the top 10 universities in the world, Stanford, Berkeley, and Cambridge, when Cambridge was part of the European Union still. And we brainwashed them for 3 months, and they returned to Poland. Nearly all of them returned to Poland, are in Poland, and they are leading personalities. Our Dean of Mathematics, Computer Science is an alumnus of this program too. And we cooperate with many Polish companies, institutions, as you can see, in order to have that bridge between Silicon Valley and Europe, particularly Poland, active. The cooperation requires, of course, a value that those people who come to Silicon Valley get from it. It is a long, long trip, let me tell you. It takes me 20 hours to come to Poland from the time I leave home and I come to the hotel. So it's tedious, and if you do it, you want to get value out of it. And so the technotourism is not what we are about. We are really about exchange of knowledge. Now, we started something new. The reason we started something new, I show you the table of centers by other countries. Sorry, this is in Polish, but what it says that all the countries of European Union have built their presence there. Poland somehow was very busy building this wonderful miracle that I can appreciate. I'm from Poznań originally. When I go through Poznań today, through Poland, it is a miracle what has happened in this country. So, but building that miracle didn't pay attention to the fact that you have to be present there. Poland wasn't present. We decided to change it, and we opened a center for Poland in Silicon Valley. A little bit of statistics. California and Poland and Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, including Silicon Valley. The San Francisco Bay Area has gross national product equal to the gross national product of Poland. The number of students is similar. We are talking about 313,000 square kilometer and 21,000 kilometer square. So that little place is such a high concentration of value that whoever doesn't appreciate it must be blind. One has to go to the well to drink the water. So, hence the center, and this dynamic bridge for transforming knowledge. The center was opened this year. You can see the opening. The president of Warsaw University, rector of Warsaw University, of Łódź Polytechnic, and many rectors from other universities were there, and 10 universities today are formally partners in the center, and we are getting now regional partners and cities as partners. And the patronage or the academic part of the center is the Ministry of Science, Higher Education. You can recognize there the minister himself who formally signed the agreement of partnership. The computer has a life of its own, so I will continue going on. And one of the things that that we constructed here is the opportunity of Polish scientists and Polish leading companies to present their abilities through the window of Silicon Valley to the world. There are some wonderful things happening in Polish laboratories, Polish universities, but the answer is, so what if nobody knows about it? You have to have a tube that informs the world about it. You have to seek relation. That's the tube, where the scientific tube, where the regional and city tube, and the business. When this all comes together, then Poland will start being a recognizable name. You ask today anybody outside of Poland, name leaders in innovation in Europe. They will mention Estonia. Of course, they will mention Denmark. They will not mention anymore Germany. Don't worry. Germany somehow got so comfortable they stopped being innovative, and so. But nobody will mention Poland. Nobody will mention Poland. And if you think that in the revolution of AI, the percentage of Polish names is very high. The two unicorns recent are from Poland. So we have to work on it to change it. Here's our program for 5 years, what we intend to achieve. Of course, writing programs and stories, what you are going to achieve is always easier than accomplishing it, but we have some pretty ambitious program. I am not going to say that we can promise a Nobel Prize, but I certainly would like to see a number of unicorns that will come out of this cooperation with Silicon Valley being a significant number. Thank you very much. That's it. We are here to answer any questions, should you have them, and should the moderator of the program allow for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, and we'll continue with Ross. Yeah, the first Ross will talk about the geopolitics of the Middle East.
Yeah, a very easy topic. First of all, deans and faculty and vice deans, thank you so much for hosting this event and for inviting me, and also my esteemed colleagues. It's wonderful to share the podium with all of you. I'm trying to get the PowerPoint up, I think. Just on a personal note, I thought about this when I landed yesterday, that my grandmother in 1924, so 100 years ago, left Poland from Łódź, actually, and left and emigrated to Germany to marry my grandfather, a German man. And her last name was Poznański. And I remember as a child when I was a child, talking about experiences in Łódź. And I think she also came to Poznan, but she mentioned somehow number one, she mentioned the aristocratic family of Poznański in Łódź, but she also mentioned some vague connection to Poznan. So when I landed yesterday, I thought about that, thought about her. So it's a very personal experience for me to be here as well. So it's an honor to be here. The topic today for me is the geopolitics of the Middle East, and is AI and technology writ large, is it mostly going to be a stabilizing force or more of a disruptive force? And that is the question. When I tell my students that when we come to the Middle East, it's more important to ask the right questions, because oftentimes the answers are elusive. And I think in many of the questions that we're going to address today, I think it's important when we talk about technology, whether in fact it's about the Middle East, disrupting the Middle East, or stabilizing the Middle East, or the globe writ large. I think it's most important. Some of the answers are not apparent to us today, but many of the questions are, and I think hopefully that's the purpose of this conference. If we can get, I can transition the slides, isn't there? Okay, perfect. I think it's a particularly propitious moment, thank you, to be talking about stability or the geopolitics or instability in the Middle East, because in the last 13 months we have seen the region be upended. Starting with October 7th of last year, the attacks by Hamas on Israel then unleashed a fury of Israel on Gaza, and and Hamas, on Hezbollah in Lebanon, and in an unprecedented fashion, we've seen direct attacks by Israel on Iran and Iranian attacks on Israel for the first time. So this is really, and then just in the last few days, we've seen the collapse of a regime that was in power in Syria for about 54 years. So when we talk about the Middle East, the geopolitics of the Middle East, everything is up for grabs at this point. So I'm saying that to you with humility, because our ability to predict the future, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, would the Assad regime collapse, I would have said, well, anything's possible, but not likely in the next 3 to 4 months. And obviously it happened right under our noses. So I think we have to be humble, both when we're talking about the effects of technology and also about the Middle East generally. So hopefully I can operate this. So I think it's important to lay out the questions that we want to address. And as I mentioned, some of these questions don't necessarily have ready answers. If you're looking to me to provide all the answers, you're looking probably at the wrong place. But I'll do my best to sort of give you my thinking. And just a full disclosure, I'm a political scientist. I focus on the Middle East, on the geopolitics of the Middle East, and just finished a 5-year project. I'm writing a book on Iranian foreign policy. I'm not a technologist. So I'm going to do my best to sort of give you a sense of the fragility of the region and some ideas as to perhaps how technology might be either stabilizing or disruptive. And I would be very interested in your ideas and responses to what I have to say. So there's several questions I think I'd like to address today. One is I've already addressed, which is, can technology actually help foster stability in the Middle East in an already unstable region? So if we have an unstable region, and the Middle East is kind of the test case or the poster child for an intrinsically unstable region, what role can technology play in stabilizing the region? We have certainly seen some of the effects, the destabilizing effects of technology in the last few weeks, last few months. But the question going forward is, can it actually help foster stability? Does technology empower or suppress citizenry? I think that the obvious is yes and yes. It can suppress and help empower. So where does that leave us in terms of the balance of power between citizens and their states that try to control them and also try to create, or try to at least create some kind of governance over them? The third is, does technology shift regional power dynamics? I think that's one of the most important questions, because the question that I have in my mind always is technology strategic or is it more tactical? So if in fact technology can be marshaled by states and by international institutions to help shift regional dynamics from its current unstable state to stability, and it can be sustainable, then that's strategic. If in fact it's just used in a tactical manner by individual actors in the region to try to climb up the ladder of escalation, then in many ways it might become strategic if it becomes kind of the norm, but many times it's just tactical. Does technology intersect with great power rivalry? We've seen in the Middle East the rise in intensity of great power rival power competition, between Russia, at least before last week, when they're at risk of losing their one Middle East base in Syria, but Russia, China, and the United States. What role can technology play, or what might great powers do to marshal technology in order to create the outcomes that they want in the Middle East? When I started studying the Middle East more decades than I'd like to admit ago, what started in the Middle East stayed in the Middle East. That's no longer the case. What starts in the Middle East now globalizes. So there is an incentive for great powers, even though they have rival interests vis-a-vis one another. There's a common interest in creating at least a modicum of stability, and what role can technology play? And last, I think it's one of the more interesting questions, is can AI bring threat perceptions more in line with reality? I've been privileged to be involved with several, over maybe a 6 or 7 year period, we call back channel negotiations. Track 1.5, where I'm a subject matter expert, and then we sit with the foreign ministers or the deputy foreign ministers in some cases, with Iran and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and the UAE, and try to, behind the scenes, create opportunities for conflict mitigation. One of the things that I have observed is the first thing you hear when you get to the table are grievances of one party against the other. And behind those grievances are perceptions of threat. So Saudi Arabia would see Iran as a regional hegemon and as a threatening actor, and similarly, Iran would see Saudi Arabia as a puppet of the United States, perhaps, or see Saudi Arabia rather, in threatening terms. And oftentimes, those perceptions of threat are based on fear, right? In some cases, justified fear, in some cases, perhaps unjustified fear, but nonetheless fear, and ideology, some kind of ideological bias. So the question is, can artificial intelligence help remove that human element? Now, in some cases, and I'm sure you'll hear from other speakers, we don't want to remove the human element from artificial intelligence. But in this case, can artificial intelligence perhaps remove the emotional part of human intelligence, or human intelligence, remove the emotional part and the ideological part to more accurately assess the motivations, the will, and the capability of other actors? In that case, that to me is a potential positive aspect of artificial intelligence and technology. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. I'm not sure just keep going if you don't mind. Yeah, so is technology a disruptor or a stabilizer of the Middle East? That is the question. Let's keep it, it's animated, so maybe just keep it going there. Yeah. So we have seen, let me just quickly go through a few, and if I'm running over my time, just let me know and I will accelerate. So please, I don't know exactly how much time I have, but I'll do my best to be as concise as possible. There's several manifestations over the last number of years, last decade or so, of the use of technology, in some cases disruptive technologies, in the Middle East. One of the most, let's say, pernicious or difficult ones to kind of justify in some sense is the Stuxnet. Stuxnet was a project, I think it was called Olympic Games. It was a project by the United States and Israel to disrupt Iran's nuclear enrichment program. Okay, not necessarily the weapons program, but their enrichment program, by using software to get their centrifuges to spin out of control and set them back. So the question is that stabilizing or is it disruptive? If you talk to the Iranians, they would say, well, it's disruptive because it's disrupting, it's increasing the tension that they feel in the region and so forth. If you talk to the Israelis, it's stabilizing because it was setting back Iran's nuclear program, or so they thought. If we go to the next slide. This is a graph that shows the Arab Spring that started in Tunisia in 2010 and then quickly spread to Egypt and other countries in the region. This graph, you don't have to read it precisely, but basically what it shows the awareness of, or the use of social media in terms of spreading the word about the Arab Spring that brought people to Tahrir Square in Cairo and brought folks to the public squares in Tunis during the Arab Spring. So technology there was used to disrupt the status quo, the Mubarak regime in the case of Egypt, or the Ben Ali regime in the case of Tunisia, and whether in fact that was a long-term stabilizing influence in the Middle East is up for grabs. But at the time, it was certainly disruptive in terms of bringing down regimes that had been in power for 30 years or more. That's the remnants of a pager, I believe. Just a few months ago, we heard about Israelis secreting pagers and programming them into Lebanon, programming them and secreting them into Lebanon, into the hands of Hezbollah. They blew up, killed a number of people, and threw the leadership of Hezbollah into disarray. So is that strategic or was it tactical? That's something I'll address just in a few minutes, hopefully. And then there's a few more. That is a robot machine gun controlled by satellite that the Israelis have used to assassinate Iranian scientists, nuclear scientists. And the last one I think you'll be familiar with are drones, Iran-made drones that were used in the attacks on Israel and also have been used when sent to Russia in the prosecution of the war with Ukraine. So I think the question becomes, in total, are these disruptive or are they potentially stabilizing? And I think in some cases we can't really answer that today, but I'm going to give you sort of my benchmark for evaluating whether in fact technology can be disruptive and a positive force or a negative force. We can go to the next slide, please. That'd be great. Oh, that's the ultimate technological advance, obviously nuclear weapons. And right now, we may in fact see Iran make a mad dash towards a nuclear weapon. And the question becomes, since Israel has a nuclear weapon, Pakistan has a nuclear weapon, India has a nuclear weapon, is this intrinsically destabilizing or stabilizing? Next one, please. So I think the one thing, sort of my North Star, my orienting point when I think about technology or I think about the Middle East generally is don't let the tail wag the dog. So next, if you don't mind. So technological superiority is not a substitute for strategy. I think that's important. Last night we talked a lot about the need for human agency and human intervention and humans being in charge of machines rather than the other way around. I think the message here is that technological superiority can be used to create strategic advantages, but it's not the same thing. You need if you're going to be using technology, it has to be governed by a clear and compelling strategic logic. Next one, please. We're going to make you work for your today's. No, can you go back if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's I think a Norwegian historian that a number of years ago said, technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master. Well, I think what the historian was saying, what he was saying was that prescriptively, we should not cede control to technology, that we should be the masters and technology should be the servant. But I take it in a different mindset, and that is that even analytically, it's important to understand that strategy, if we're thinking about strategy, we need to be thinking and analyzing these particular events that have used it, where technology has been used. It's important to consider the fact that we need to be asking the analytic question, do these individual uses of technology tie into a broader strategy, or are they just sort of tactical maneuvers to create short-term advantages? And when we're looking at a country, a region like the Middle East, we are looking for long-term sustainable advantages, not short-term outcomes. Go to the next, please. I'd say that the poster child or negative poster child for how technology alone hardly ever creates strategic advantage, that's a training picture or training video that Hamas used in the lead up to the attacks of October 7th. So who had the technological superiority in that battle? It's clearly Israel had the technological superiority. They used signal intelligence, an over-reliance, I would argue, of signal intelligence on its border, on Israel's border with Gaza. Okay, it also used robotic-style maneuvers, mechanisms for repelling Hamas, but there was a strategic problem. Israel had made a major strategic error. Number one, it had assumed that Hamas was contained. Okay, number one. Number two, it used Hamas as a foil or as an excuse for not negotiating with the Palestinians in the West Bank. Okay, so it used them, and then with the right-wing government that came into power, I believe in 2022, it started to stoke violence in the West Bank and drew the Israeli Defense Forces mostly away from the Gaza border, which they assumed was secure, away into the West Bank to quell some of the unrest, and also to Israel's northern border with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. So Israel, despite all of the technological advantages, because of a strategic error, actually became vulnerable to a relatively sophisticated adversary. Hamas was much more sophisticated than was thought, and they used their own technological advantages, but they had a strategic logic. Israel did not have strategic logic, and so therefore, at least in the short term, they prevailed. So that's kind of my kind of poster child for an example of where there's technological superiority, but a strategic misstep meant that gave them no real long-term advantage. In fact, played to their weaknesses. Next, please. That having been said, I've been talking a lot up to this point about that technology should be a master of human beings and strategy. There are cases where technology has been, in and of itself, in some ways, strategically important. There's a wonderful quote from Richard Darnton, former professor of history at Princeton, and he's talking about the French Revolution. And he says the printing press was the crucial instrument in this process. Without the press, the French Revolution was impossible and unthinkable. And I think to some degree what he's saying is without the ability to disseminate information to citizenry, any kind of mass revolution would not be thinkable. So I think it's important that we be humble, both in understanding that technology can enable certain types of activity, but also understand that it needs to tie into a broader strategic context. So my quote for myself when I'm thinking through this presentation is that technology seldom confers a stable or sustainable or permanent advantage. It might give an advantage in the short term, but unless it is tied into a broader strategic logic, it's unlikely to be sustainable. I think that's kind of my overriding message for today. Please, next one. So quickly, there are 4, and is there a clock running in terms of time?
Like 10 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so I'll go maybe quickly through these, and then quickly go through some of the stabilizing aspects of technology and then the destabilizing. There's 4 geopolitical realities in the Middle East today, from my perspective, that I think are important and are relevant to technology in particular. One is the lack of a regional security architecture. You know, the Middle East is the most fraught region, one of the most fraught regions, if not the most fraught region in the globe. As I mentioned, things that start in the Middle East no longer, they don't stay there. My wife and I have a home in Germany, and we see there's 1 million Syrian refugees from the Syrian civil war and I'm sure there's some also here in Poland. So what starts in the Middle East doesn't stay there. And it's stunning to me that there's really no regional architecture. Other regions of the world, Southeast Asia, that at one time were quite fraught, in fact maybe even more violent and interventionist than the Middle East, have now transitioned into at least a modicum of stability. The regional institution called ASEAN, the Southeast Asian Security Organization, Economic Security Organization, has given leaders in that region 2 things. Given them an incentive to cooperate, and also given them the political cover to make decisions to cooperate without paying the political price at home. We don't have that in the Middle East. There are regional institutions. There's the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is a sub-regional institution. We have the Abraham Accords, a sub-regional kind of agreement. We have the Arab League. There are institutions, but they're not very robust. And if anything, they've been used to foster instability or foster conflict, not foster stability. So this is one feature, and I'll probably focus on that the most in my remaining time. The second is empowered states. I remember 10, 15 years ago, there was a talk about super empowered individuals like Osama bin Laden and the diminution of power of the states. Well, that was sort of the conventional wisdom at the time, but that's not the case. You see the empowerment of states like the UAE and Qatar, states that are using technology to in some cases suppress or at least organize or govern their citizenry. The third is empowered regional actors. I've been working on this region, as I said, more decades than I would like to admit here. And when I started my study of the Middle East and work on the Middle East, it was during the Cold War. And for the most part, even though there were strong regional actors like Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Iran and Turkey, largely the region was organized on Cold War lines. There were states that were aligned with the United States, states that were aligned with the Soviet Union. And before that, the colonial period, where Great Britain and France were organizing parts of the Middle East. Today, probably starting maybe 20 years ago, the regional actors are far more empowered than they ever were before, relative to global powers. So we have countries like Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Israel that are acting to some degree independently of great powers. I met, maybe this was probably a year ago, I met with an Israeli senior military official at a conference. And I said, well, what happens if the Biden administration decides to double down and basically say all military aid will be contingent upon a ceasefire in Gaza? And he said, you know what we'll do? We'll move to Russia and China. I was shocked to hear that from an Israeli defense official because they're so heavily dependent upon the United States. So how much of that was bravado and how much of that was real? We haven't found out yet. But all actors in the region are acting more independent of the other. And the third is great power rivalry. Great power rivalry has intensified, which in a way has improved the independence of regional powers because now they have choices. It's not a new Cold War where states sort of align themselves only with one country. Saudi Arabia is now hedging their bet with the United States, with China. Iran is more empowered with Russia because of the drone technology. Israel's acting more independently, and Turkey, a treaty ally of the United States under NATO, is globally is an ally, but regionally is anything but an ally. So great power rivalry and regional power empowerment go hand in hand. I'm going to try to speed up here a little bit. Okay, keep going if you don't mind. All right, one of the features, and then maybe I'll stop here and we can address some of the other issues maybe during the Q&A. One of the problems of the Middle East today with the lack of a regional architecture is that an over-reliance on deterrence. Okay? So deterrence basically relies on perception and estimates of risk. So if you are Iran, you ask the question, how is Israel calculating risk that if they would bomb us, with or without the United States, what risk is Israel perceiving, or what threat is Israel perceiving relative to an attack on Iran? And they basically, the Iranians would say, well, we have Hezbollah across the border in Lebanon, we have Hamas, this is before October 7th of last year, we have Hamas in Gaza, we have the Hashd-e-Shaabi in Iraq, we have militias in Syria, and we have the Houthis in Yemen. If we're attacked, well, all of those militias can launch attacks on Israel. The most promising from the standpoint of the Iranians would have been Hezbollah, with somewhere between 100 and 150,000 missiles. And the perception was that that created deterrence, that Israel would be deterred from attacking Iran because of that, based upon perception of risk, right? And the Israelis had a similar perception, was that Iran would be, because Israel has a nuclear weapon, they haven't admitted to it, but they have a nuclear weapon, that Iran would be deterred in some way. So there's been an over-reliance on deterrence. When the whole region, the stability of an entire region rests upon deterrence, it may appear to be stable, but it's an unstable form of equilibrium, right, intrinsically. And we saw that happening after October 7th of last year, when deterrence completely failed, right? I mean, Israel's deterrence failed to deter Hamas, and at least in the Israeli mindset, that even though Iran was not behind the attacks, Iran certainly is a supporter of Hamas. So they were thinking about Iran, but Iran is no longer deterred. And then later on, once there were direct attacks between Israel and Iran, the perception was that neither Iran is deterred nor Israel is deterred. So what that leads to, we can go to the next one, please. I'll skip through this. I think it's interesting, but I'll skip through it if you keep going. I'm trying not to blow through my time. What that does is it gives, technology has been used to try to regain deterrence. What do I mean by that? Well, think about the pager incident that I mentioned in Lebanon, right? The idea was to use intelligence, say AI-enabled intelligence, and technologically enabled intelligence to understand where Hezbollah fighters were, where the leadership was, and to use the pagers themselves, the technological advance. I mean, the pagers themselves are not high technology, but the way they penetrated, the Israelis penetrated that system was certainly high in technology. They used that in order to create disarray among Hezbollah, and then attack them more conventionally, which was sort of non-use of technology. They used technology to give them an advantage, an a priori advantage, and then used conventional means essentially to attack Hezbollah. Similarly, Iran has used their drones to attack Israel, a form of technology. Israel in turn used their signal intelligence and their incredible intelligence capabilities to then disable Iran's missile defense systems inside Iran. So what's happened is technology has run amok, if you will, in terms of these countries and these states trying to reestablish deterrence that was lost before October 7th, or after October 7th, deterrence lost. And that's the danger, the message that I want to give you, is that what we're seeing, some of these we might be able to tie to strategic logic, but you're looking at technology to be being used to establish escalation dominance or escalatory dominance, where each state is trying to get dominance over the other and then stop. So that there's some kind of deterrence, but at least one party is dominant over the other. And that use of technology is happening right in front of our eyes, and it's extremely dangerous. So let's go fast forward here. I'll go to the end. We've been through some of this, so keep going. I'll go to my conclusions, and then we can keep going. Sorry. Yeah. There's more to say, but I'm going to stop. So basically, in terms of my conclusions are, technology itself doesn't constitute an advantage unless it is used as a strategic tool. Number 2, technology is not a substitute for strategy. We are not in a, we kind of go back and forth between being in a strategic moment in the Middle East and being in an astrategic moment in the Middle East. And right now we don't know where the shifts that are occurring right now with the collapse of Syria, where we will be, but we've seen the use of technology in order to gain tactical advantage. Whether in fact that leads to some kind of broader strategic advantage is something we don't know. Number 3, given the collapse of deterrence and lack of a regional architecture in the Middle East, technology can become dangerously king, which is what we've seen now. Dangerously king. If it's not governed, if it's not nested into a broader strategy, either a strategy for a common interest like a regional architecture, or a strategy for a particular state to create sustainable advantage, it can spiral out of control. And we talk about AI, humans losing control of AI. Well, in this case, it's not so much AI. It is that if you're using technology to establish escalation dominance, if you're doing that, at some point, humans may lose control of their own war dynamic and find ourselves into a broader conflict. Okay, I think that is it. And just one quick advertisement. If you're interested in strategy, at least my work on strategy, this is a book that came out about 10 years ago, and the next one, quickly, is a book that's forthcoming by Ivy Torres, Bloomsbury of London, Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy. It'll be out in 2025, and some of the things I talked about today are in the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Ross. And we'll continue with Anna. We'll talk about AI in the military domain, so actually it's getting more and more scary, I would say. Right? And we'll have the military dimension.
Does this work or no?
Sure, that's okay. Just shoot.
Good morning, everyone, and I would also echo my colleagues here and thank everyone involved in the organization of this conference for bringing us here today. So yes, I'm a researcher in international politics based at the Center for War Studies, University of Southern Denmark, and my research is part of the European Research Council funded project called Autonorms. And it's broadly on military applications of AI and also potential global governance of these technologies. And in recent years, the focus of the debates and discussions on military applications of AI, both in academia and also regulatory and policy discussions, have been much on the integration of AI in weapon systems. So usually when you think of uncrewed weapon systems, such as various types of drones. And more specifically, it has been the focus has been on how advances in AI, and especially machine learning, allow for increasing the level of autonomy in weapon systems. So if you think of a spectrum of autonomy going from remotely controlled weapon systems to systems that have some autonomous and AI-enabled features, all the way to fully autonomous weapon systems, or what are called often lethal autonomous weapon systems, or you might have also heard the term killer robots. So the focus has really been on the concerns raised by going towards the right of the spectrum towards these weapon systems that could select and engage targets without human intervention. And since 2014, there's been a debate at the United Nations within the framework of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, which then has this group of governmental experts on lethal autonomous weapon system that meets in Geneva roughly twice a year and often in this room. So I was able to go and observe this debate several times. It has been broadly on the challenges raised by lethal autonomous weapons, especially the legal challenges, and whether there needs to be a new legally binding instrument to address those concerns, whether it's in the form of a new treaty or a new protocol to the convention. And so far, as it often happens at the UN, the states parties to the convention did not manage to agree any way forward on this issue. And so basically that means that currently we are without specific global regulation in relation to AI in the military or autonomous technologies in weapon systems. And as we lack these regulatory frameworks, at the same time, armed forces around the world are investing into various ways of integrating AI into their militaries. And that, of course, that includes autonomy in weapon systems, but also there are many other applications that deserve further examination. One application I'd like to highlight today is the use of AI technologies in the process of military decision-making, specifically on the use of force, so targeting decision-making. That would be in the form of these so-called AI-based decision support systems. And I wrote this report together with my colleagues. I will leave a few copies here, and it's also available online on this topic, so a lot of what I will say will come from this report. So here we're talking about not about weapon systems and not fully autonomous systems. This is about AI being employed at various stages of the decision-making process, and just like many other areas like healthcare, the judiciary, etc. In the military, if you think of the whole decision-making process on the use of force, it's very complex, it's multi-layered, it involves many different actors, and it can also last for different periods of time. And there are different steps involved, and AI systems could potentially be used at several of these steps. Here we have different types of AI decision support systems. They can be used to organize and analyze very large volumes of data, recognize patterns within that data, also to predict scenarios at different levels, and also potentially even to recommend some courses of action to military commanders and operators. And this is happening at different levels as well: strategic, operational, tactical. It's important to note that this is not AI replacing the human it's not an AI system making the decision. It's supposed to be, it's meant to assist, right? It's meant to be a tool where the human is still in control, making the decision, but the AI system is involved in one or potentially many tasks that could either directly or even indirectly somehow impact or be related to the use of force, so the decision on targeting. It's also not a very brand new development, because the use of computerized and automated tools, there's a long history of that in military decision making, but especially with developments or relatively recent developments in machine learning, that raised also a lot of interest in developing such systems. So one example that you might have heard about is the so-called Project Maven, launched by the US Department of Defense in 2017. So the kind of original, or let's say the intention behind it was to use computer vision and machine learning algorithms to identify targets in real time, and that would be based on data collected by the US, mostly in the Middle East. It's basically millions of hours of drone footage collected. And so this is, we see here a screenshot from a Bloomberg report that describes how this Maven Smart system works or would work. So it's a sort of an interface that presents the data feed to the human operators and commanders, and then they could make potential decisions on courses of action to take based on the information, and that would include targeting as well. So the smart system would have yellow boxes to designate potential targets like ships and military bases, and then the blue boxes would indicate no strike zones like civilian infrastructure. And there are, so in the report we try to review different developments related to AI-based decision support systems, because there's increasingly more information coming from not only in terms of Maven, but also Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the latest phase of the Israel-Hamas war since October 7th, 2023. So you can read those developments, about those developments in the report, and what we argue is that as we learn or we get more information about how AI-based decision support systems are being used, that raises questions about the role of humans and AI systems in the use of force, and that requires further debate. So for instance, some concerns that that come up include how the information is presented in the interface, also the data that the system is trained upon. As you might know, AI systems rely on the quality of the data that they are trained on, and warfare is a very dynamic environment, so a system trained on one particular set of data might or probably will not apply to another context. Also technical malfunctions that might lead to unintended consequences, and different assumptions and biases involved. So I know it's a common argument to say that AI will kind of solve the issue of human bias, but there are also various biases in the data set used to train AI, and also the system biases, but also what is called automation bias, or issues of trust, and specifically overtrust. So there's this phenomenon where humans tend to overtrust an output provided by an algorithmic system, even though they know that it's likely to contain errors. And we also need to consider how these systems are used in accordance with certain targeting doctrines, with rules of engagement, and just broadly within certain societal contexts and pressures. And the reports about Israel's uses of several AI-based decision support systems in Gaza illustrate many of these concerns. And I say reports because I don't have exclusive information on how exactly these systems were used. What we have is a set of different statements, and so it's a disclaimer to make, but still, just looking at what we have is also quite important, I think. So, so there are several AI decision support systems that the IDF stated that it has used as part of its military operations in Gaza. One is called Lavender, one is called the Gospel, and what the IDF states is that these are databases used to cross-reference intelligence sources, and that such tools have been used only as one of the steps, or kind of a small part of the decision-making process on targeting. Then we also have investigations, right, based on whistleblower accounts, such as the screenshots that you see here. And based what these investigations reveal is that in practice there are a number of concerns about how such systems were used, and especially the role of the human, because as I said before, remember, this is not AI making the decision. Humans are still there. They are making the decisions, but still there are a lot of questions about their role and in the process of targeting, right? And targeting is essentially life and death decisions that affect combatants, civilians, and especially in an urban warfare zone like Gaza, this is particularly concerning. So what we learned from investigations is that, and especially at the end of 2023, there was a unprecedentedly high number of targets in quite a short amount of time. And that, again, that raises concerns about the room left for human judgment. So the accounts here suggest that actually there was not enough kind of time and space for the critical thinking that is required by international humanitarian law when making targeting decisions, and that the human role appears to be kind of a rubber stamp, as some experts call it. So it's an approval of outputs from algorithmic system, but without engaging in the necessary kind of considerations of the consequences of these attacks. And so basically there's a concern about essentially AI systems as kind of validation tools and kind of simply checking boxes, and so that the role of the human there is actually quite nominal. So it's not, even though it's officially there, what kind of quality of the human role, if you think of it in that way, was, and do these support systems actually support the human, or rather they negatively impact the human role? That's the question here. And so these are a number of concerns that need to be considered when we think about this issue. But what I wanted to highlight especially is that basically even with a human as what is called in or on the loop of decision making raises a number of concerns about the quality of the judgment that is present. And basically the whole topic of AI and warfare and in the military domain shouldn't be only about autonomous weapon systems or terminators and killer robots. Of course, autonomy weapon systems is a very important topic, don't get me wrong, to discuss, but also we need to consider that most militaries right now are not necessarily investing a lot of time and effort into replacing humans with AI or autonomous system, but rather to integrate AI into processes and create so-called human-machine teaming, right? So where they interact with each other, and this human-machine interaction is what is important to analyze further. And I really like this quote by a US scholar called Charlie Carpenter. So she writes that, again, like this is the issue is not about killer robots replacing humans, but it's about making human decision-making too robotic, essentially transforming human operators themselves into killer robots. And the AI-based decision support systems are not a formal topic that are at the UN debate, because as I mentioned, this UN debate has been focusing on autonomous weapon systems, and AI-based decision support systems involve humans making targeting decisions. But this issue is gradually being explored within other types of frameworks, and especially this whole debate on responsible uses of AI in the military domain. So, for example, there have been 2 summits, global summits called the Re-Aim Summit in The Hague and in Seoul earlier this year. where these issues of human-machine interaction as part of AI-based decision support systems are discussed. So I think that's a step forward. We also have the US Political Declaration on responsible military use of AI and autonomy that's been endorsed by more than I believe 50 states, but it's not legally binding, right? It's a political declaration, but I'm just saying that the debate is broadening as well towards considering these issues of also sustaining and strengthening the human role, and that is so essentially the importance for humans involved in targeting decision making. To have the necessary conditions that includes time and space to deliberate on the use of an AI system in the specific context that they're in. And the debate, these debates on responsible use of AI really need to kind of move forward to more practical ways of ensuring these conditions for the human to have a meaningful role and to exercise their human agency, right, and capacity to deliberate and act. And so what I argue, what I want to end with is that these debates should now focus on actual operational guidance and practical ways of addressing all of these challenges related to human-machine interaction in the military domain. So I think I will end here, and just if you're interested, please, you will find the report on our website, as well as 2 other reports on loitering munitions and air defense systems, if you're interested in the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We continue with Professor Roman Becker, who will talk about totalitarian threats of artificial intelligence. So it's getting worse and worse, because we went from geopolitics in the Middle East through the military domain to totalitarianism.
Thank you very much for invitation. I would like to speak about more dangerous thing as a weapon, about social structures, our thinking, and consequences of AI for us. If we speak about totalitarian threats of AI, we should speak about digital era. AI is third epoch of digital era, and we should clear with definition of totalitarianism. In industrial era, we can speak about sovereignty of state-party apparatus. But in digital era, situation is differently, and if I suggest totalitarianism in digital era is sovereignty of united class of rulers, owners, managers of corporations and celebrities, so-called contemporary priests. Totalitarian threats are factors contributing to the emergence of a totalitarian regime. It is only possibility increasing appeal of totalitarianism, but not the totalitarian as first threat are rapid changes of technologies. Social consequences of it is very serious. People have no time to accommodate, absorb, learn new technologies before next new technologies appear. And consequence, the situation is very serious. We are under immediate exclusion from the digital world, from the social world in any time. The social empowerment is labil and unpredictable. The social empowerment is social based for empowerment of political nation. And empowerment of political nation is crucial definition of democracy. From the reason democracy in digital era is unstable, unpredictable, fragile. And from the reason we speak about backsliding, illiberalization, and so on. Second threat, our minds become shallow. We are under supernormal stimulus. Junk food, junk information, so-called entertainment, feartainment, and so on. Problems are disappeared in our social thinking and our thinking by cutting social bonds, not by resolve problems. And consequence is very simple. Typical, more and more typical is procrastination. Third threat, rulers and corporations have more and more power. They are power under new technologies, under social involvement of new technologies. And fourth, it is surveillance. I was under surveillance of secret police in communist Poland. They have 1% or less informations from contemporary my bank. And it is only one institution. And can we imagine unification, all institutions collected information about us? Filter bubble effect described by Paliter in consequence give creation no tribal worlds. We have in social sex supported Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, and we love only our supporters and our leader and hate another people. In the era of artificial intelligence, all above threats become even more serious, as in former epochs of digital era. The speed of technological changes is increasing. Masses have more supernormal stimulus. Rulers and corporations have access to new types of data. The new type of data are more very specific and deeper in our mind. I think about thinking structures, hierarchy of axionormative values, vocabulary, resources of each of us. Surveillance, in consequence, regarding all possible levels of life and concern very deep structures of our thinking and controlling the shape, agenda setting, diagnosis and action scenarios of individual men and women and groups to which it belongs is universal. I think we can speak about the scale of opportunities to influence individual people rapidly increase. Personalization of power through influence mechanism is available in each level of managing of society. The possibilities of using forms of social control are extremely expanding. I can speak about social Sesame credit in China, but it is only one example. Violence is not necessary. Rulers may use marginalization, isolation, and creation of a negative image. Each person who is not adequate, not subordinate to them. If it's not necessary to use terror, we can speak about glamour totalitarianism. Glamour totalitarianism, it is gentle, smooth, imperceptible. AI totalitarianism seems friendly, wish fulfilling, desire preventing. And we can touch it. We can't touch it. We maybe think all is okay. Totalitarianism in AI epoch may be invisible. And concluded, when will AI totalitarianism happen? I think it will be monopoly of setting rules. It is broader notion as prerogative state, antinomy of rule or law. Setting rules, it is the all rules of social life mediated by AI. Institutional monopoly, second condition, in the sense of a conglomerate of state-related political institutions, corporations, and celebrities. Who is at the way to AI totalitarianism? Usually, we should speak about China and Russia. They are very close for many publicists and political scientists. I'm not sure. I think each one who makes about conditions are on the way of AI totalitarianism. And from the reason, can we imagine the scenario? Trump and Musk, two very powerful persons, maybe totalitarian rulers, not only United States or not. It is a question without answer. It is a question about possible future. It is a question about our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for these presentations and your thoughts. Well, actually, we ran out of time, so maybe just a couple of questions from the audience, just to give you a chance.
Maybe after the coffee break, 15 minutes,
and then we'll come back here.
Yes, for a roundtable and question and a session. So a coffee break, I may.
Yes, I think you never say no to a coffee, right? So it's like, so we can grab our coffee, have some biscuits, and then please come back here in like 15 minutes. They promised that they will not escape, right? You will not escape. So thank you very much once again, and see you in 15 minutes.